Okay, hello everyone. Good evening. Today we are going to have an academic talk with Dr. Beata Piskorska from Poland. Dr. Beata is a friend of mine. She is working as associate professor in the Department of International Relations at John Paul II Catholic University of Lublin. She is an expert at the European Commission Representation Office in Poland, Team Europe, and the founder and president of the Education and Research International Association area. She is also a member of several national and European research associations, including European International Studies Association, Polish Association of International Relations, European Association of European Studies, and Center for Eastern European Studies. Her main research interests are, Dr. Beata's main research interests are European integration, the European Union's foreign policy, European neighborhood policy, the EU's policy towards Eastern Europe and South Caucasus countries, and finally, the EU's role in international relations. She is the author and editor of several academic books and dozens of articles specialized on international relations and Eastern policy of the EU. In short, we have an expert today, Dr. Beata. I know her personally also because she visited the last year Turkey in Istanbul. She visited Istanbul Gedik University as part of the Erasmus program, and she gave a wonderful seminar and also course to our students. So she knows Turkey as well. Concerning recent developments about Turkey-EU relations, we wanted to take her opinions or expertise about recent developments. Thank you, Beata, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, and I would like to say hello to everyone who are listening us, and thank you very much, Dr. Ozan, for warm introduction, and especially for invitation me in order to share of my views and opinions about the EU-Turkish relations and development in the European Union as a core interest of mine. So thank you very much once again. I will do it with pleasure. I will share my opinions with you with pleasure and invite you, of course, once again to my university, the John Paul II Catholic University. It was halted, as we know, by coronavirus pandemic. So I invite you all of time to Poland in order to you can observe how situation in Poland developed. So okay, once again, I appreciate of this meeting, and I give you for the screen, of course, not the floor. No.
Thank you, Beata. Let's start with our questions. As I will state in a minute, in the declaration of the European Council meeting also about Turkey, the one thing that was mentioned was the making communication channels open. So that's why I think our meeting and similar meetings are important. We have to, as academics, as important people in our countries, we have to take our opinions to improve relations. Europe is very important for Turkey, European Union. I think Turkey is also a significant actor for European Union. So let's start with the first question. It's a popular topic in Turkey right now. After the EU Council, European Council meeting of December 10-11, 2020, in fact, it was 2 weeks ago, the Council decided to revert to its conclusions of October 2020 in terms of EU's relations with Turkey in the light of the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean. So Turkey's activities in the Eastern Mediterranean are defined as provocative, but at the same time, the withdrawal of Turkish ship vessel Oruç Reis is noted, and the initiation of exploratory talks between Greece and Turkey is encouraged. The open status of communication channels is also mentioned in the declaration. Plus, Turkish-EU relations are defined as strategic, which could be considered, in fact, as a positive thing. Lastly, Turkey's unilateral steps in the Varosha region are denounced, and the necessity of a comprehensive settlement is underlined in terms of Cyprus question. So, Beata, since it is one of your expertise, how we can define Turkey's position in terms of EU accession? We know that there are problems, especially in the last years, these are increased, but what do you think about Turkish accession to EU?
Okay, thank you very much. Starting from your first remark on the European Council, which was held last week, the last Council of the year, it is not surprising that the last Council had as one of its main foreign policy issues for discussion the EU-Turkey relations. Because as we know, the European Union remains all the time committed to defending its interests as well as to upholding regional stability in Europe and outside of Europe. As you mentioned, during the last European Council and after this Council, High Representative of Common Foreign Security Policy of the EU, Joseph Borrell, stressed that it is really, let me quote, it is clear that the European Union will not be able to achieve stability on the continent unless it finds the right balance with relations with Turkey. The end of citation. Regrettably, the recent developments in Turkey put into question how relation will develop. And as Dr. Ozan Ormeci mentioned, situation, especially in Eastern Mediterranean, requires urgent engagement, immediate de-escalation. Because it's breakthrough breakthrough moment in relations between two parties. Especially the European Union authorities stressed that Turkey is still important EU neighbor and candidate country, because I would remind that Turkey has been an associate member of the European Economic Community since 1963, and it was before the Great Britain joined the EU in 1973. That's why it was recognized as a candidate for the EU membership in 1999, but negotiation didn't start until 2005. I'm aware that I'm conscious that Turkish audience know this information, but I would like to stress that especially the Turkish government's crackdown following the failed cabinet detente on 15 July 2016 ceased the negotiations with Turkey, and negotiations were suspended while political repression continues in Turkey, and especially due to continuing concerns about the human rights situation. That's why relations with Turkey are tensioned and had been and have been all of time one of the greatest EU challenges in last year. And in my opinion, this will likely remain the case for the next year, 2021. And turning to your question, what are the main obstacles in bilateral relations between the EU and Turkey? In recent years, and in recent year especially, Turkish provocative activities in the Eastern Mediterranean are still taking place. That's why the European Union reacted on this behavior, including in Cyprus' exclusive economic zone. There are also concerns about Turkey's illegal activities in Cyprus, as well as its invasion into Greek territory, because there are also concerns about Turkey's illegal energy exploration and drilling activities, in the Eastern Mediterranean, and the violation of Greek airspace and Greek and Cypriot territorial waters on various occasions. So they are the most important obstacles and threats of the European Union border, but not enough. The other one are tensions over democracy, migration, and illegal energy drilling, as I mentioned earlier. But the oldest one is the condemnation of military intervention in Syria. In October, I would like to remind that in October 2019, Turkey launched a military operation in northern Syria in order to create a so-called buffer zone between the two countries where Syrian refugees living in Turkey and could be moved to. That's why this move was condemned by members of European Parliament during a debate on October 2019, and the members of European Parliament adopted a resolution which called the sanctions against Turkey over its military operations. So I think that especially in this moment, very crucial for bilateral relations, adopting the framework of sanctions that can be imposed, both responsible for Turkey's gas exploration and especially developments in East Mediterranean, and the decision on November 2020 to extend this sanction by 1 year stopped in this moment the possibility of negotiations of accession on candidates and negotiation Turkey to the European Union. I think it is a main obstacle, regardless of these problems with relations. The European Union and Turkey, like it was mentioned during the European Council, should have close links in many areas because they have common interests in many areas. But maybe I would like to continue of the both interests, the common interests later.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Beata. You summarized it very well, the look towards Turkey, the mainstream look towards Turkey in Europe. But as a citizen academic of Turkey, let me add Turkish counter reactions as well. Of course, you tell us objectively how Europeans evaluate the situation. Looking from Turkey's statesmen, including President Erdogan, Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, they always underline that we are ready to negotiate and get into an agreement about the Eastern Mediterranean drilling zones, exclusive economic zones, and delimitation of the Eastern Mediterranean. So Turkey is not shying away from getting into exploratory talks with Greece. Turkish president always mentioned this. And in Cyprus, as I live there, the situation looks a bit different from looking from Turkey. Of course, there is a problem. There is the lack of settlement in island. You also live there in Cyprus, by the way. You've been there. You were on the south side. I was on the. So let's hope there will be a solution. Of course, many Turks who are looking for Turkish accession to EU also strongly support of settlement in the island. But of course, this should be fair looking from Turkish point of view. But thank you. Let me add this because sometimes Turkish people could be angry if I don't defend my country's interests. So secondly, Beata, of course, EU is not only about Turkey, Greece, Cyprus. There are a lot of countries, 27 countries. Brexit happened, so Britain is leaving now, but there are 27 very important countries. Each of them are important. We try to teach them in our courses, all of them, all European countries, which are equally valuable to Turkey. So how could you evaluate the year 2020? So it was a tough year because there was the pandemic. There were many problems. I think in the last meeting, there was also the issue of Poland, Hungary blocking the budget. There were some other issues. So How was 2020 for the European Union?
Okay, let me say that it was one of the toughest year in the world, not only in Europe at all. In 2020, especially, the EU had to face many challenges. You mentioned some of this, but the crisis and crises, because we are used to think and say that crises in the European Union make the EU maybe not great again, but strengthen the EU again. When it comes to challenges of the year 2020, one of the most important was to be Brexit, of course, and climate issues. It was mentioned by Ursula von der Leyen in her speech when he was elected as a president of the European Commission. But the unexpected outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic in the early 2020 deeply shocked Europe and the whole world. In my opinion, the temperature of European politics has been heated, especially this year, by mentioned Brexit, Turkey-EU relations, and Turkey-Cyprus and Greek relations, because we should talk about this region. COVID-19, of course, and migrations and refugees crisis. When it comes to coronavirus pandemic, of course, the European Union was forced to react very quickly and decisively in order to protect the lives of citizens and livelihood in European countries. But the ambitious goal for the future Europe set by mentioned European Commission was issues such as climate neutrality, as a digital transformation for Europe, and especially the strengthening the European position in the world through the more geopolitical approach. What in terms of EU-Turkey and the EU neighbors relations, it could be very important, but of course it was pushed into further plan because of the challenges and threats such as coronavirus pandemic, Brexit, of course, was planned for a long time, because after more than 3 years after the British decided in a referendum to leave the European Union, the United Kingdom formally ceased to be a member of this organization until January, end of January 2020. But now the biggest challenge in 2020 was forging on the agreement on the future relationships between the EU and Great Britain, in particular the trade deal by the end of December this year, because the transition period will end to the end of the year. And of course, because it is very important for Poland, for migrants, workers in Great Britain, especially for students, because of Erasmus program and cooperation between universities, and especially without agreed an agreement between the EU and Great Britain, it can lead to legal and economic chaos in mutual relations and relations, especially in a trade from the perspective of Europe. When it comes to refugee crisis as a continuing challenges for the European Union since 2015, which hit the European Union with full force this year. Of course, despite the development of many models how to cope with the crisis on a base of cooperation between member states. In fact, the only success in the EU refugee policy was the agreement with Turkey in 2016. It was established in this year, and it of course, there are many disturbances in this deal because the fate was put into questions in 2020 when Turkish president, as you know, threatened to repass refugees across the border with Greece, using this as a political tool, of course, and political pressure on the European Union in order to continue negotiation process. It was how I see it. And the last two challenges are the problems with approving the budget. You mentioned about it, that the threat of veto by Poland and Hungary after lengthy negotiations of the EU's multilateral framework for 2021-2027, which was finally and happily agreed in the last European Council in 2020 of December. This budget is crucial because attached recovery funds to mitigate the social and economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The introduction, as you know, the principle of making the allocation of funds from the EU budget depend on the principle of rule of law, resulted in the threat of voting the budget by Poland and Hungary. But as I said and summarized happily, budget of around 1.8 billion was finally adopted in December. And I don't like to tell about the climate changes, because it's obvious that European Green Deal is one of the priority of European Union. And once again, Poland was the only one country which didn't accept this Green Deal, didn't accept the reduction at least 40% to 55% compared to 1990, and limited the reduction of greenhouse by 2050. Last time, fortunately, our government accepted during and after, especially after negotiations of the European Council, and this Green Deal can enter into force starting from the next year. And the last one, challenges, because there are many challenges for the European Union, not only last year, but especially last 2020. In my opinion, it is destabilization in the neighborhood of the European Union, not only southern neighborhood because of Syria conflict, because of a refugee crisis and what it happens in the Middle East in general, but from the Polish perspective, there are the stabilization of the eastern neighborhood and the stabilization and political and security situation on the eastern border as a result of Russian aggression and result of still lasting Ukrainian-Russian conflict. Starting from July, European Union prolonged sanction for imposing sanction on Russia for, of course, this behavior which is not observe the rule of law and observe the human rights. And what happens in Belarus, you know, because I know that in your region, it is not a great interest, but in connection with the use of violence against the peaceful protests, against the rigging of the August presidential elections in Belarus, political sanctions were also imposed on representatives of Belarusian authorities. So finally, actually, the situation is not stable outside of the European Union. That's why not only a pandemic, but also destabilization, security, political crises outside of the European Union, I think can influence have very big influence on the European Union and the whole.
Thank you, Beata. I get it very well. Now I have a question about Poland. Poland is a developing European country. It's an important, strategically important country. Americans study a lot about Poland, for instance, but in Turkey, we learn about Poland recently, so it's not a very investigated country. So in European circles, EU circles, there is this general criticism towards Poland and Hungary about the lack of rule of law, the trend towards authoritarianism. Maybe that's why studying Poland is also important for Turkey, because more severe criticism comes to Turkey about rule of law and democracy. And more recently, I just read from the international press that the Polish version of Constitutional Court, Constitutional Tribunal, it's called in English, I think, decided on a ban on abortion. I know Poland is a strong Catholic country, and abortion has always been controversial in Christian faith-based politics. So what is the general democratic standards of Poland? Why people, especially some European leaders, criticize Poland in terms of rule of law, democracy? Plus, what was this abortion ban? Is it a total ban or a restriction? What could you say about this? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I expected these questions about the situation in Poland. Unfortunately, there are many disturbances and many developments, not developments and good developments in Poland when it comes to abortion restrictions and political situation, because, as you know, Poland and Hungary especially are accused of not respecting rule of law, which is the main rule, the main principle of the European Union. And we accepted this rule, the Article 6 rule and Article 2 Treaty of the European Union, when we entered the European Union in 2004. Starting from your first remark, Poland, in fact, actually was presented from 90s as a model of democratic, economic and political reforms in comparison to the other Central and Eastern European countries. Of course, we are treated like a model for our Eastern neighbors, especially for Ukraine, Belarus, and maybe Georgia, some Southern Caucasus countries, as a model for going to the passing through the way to democratic countries as on a pattern of the Western countries. Nowadays, Poland is criticized. I agree, it's criticized. It is partly justified for not compliance with the rule of law, and especially for this that authorities, our authorities, would like to push our country to so-called polexit, which is not awaited, of course, by Polish citizens, because according to latest polls and research, even almost 80% of Poles would like to be still in the European Union. Rule of law, of course, is one of the most widely debated topics in the European Union politics last year, not only in terms of Hungary and Poland, because the problem and the crisis of rule of law principle and generally democratic standards in some European Union countries, such as Romania and Malta as well, is disputable. Because the reputations of these countries, especially the former ones, is torn by political scandals. While it was investigated in the article by the New York Times, and revealed systemic corruption around payments, especially the common agriculture policy. But of course, I wouldn't like to talk about the other countries, because I would like to focus on my countries and the risk of Polexit, which is very likely. Of course, Poles wouldn't like to and wouldn't like to even say the word Polexit, because I know that it's very dangerous in comparison to what happened in Great Britain, especially because the word exit and Brexit was very often mentioned by the government, by the Prime Minister of Great Britain, the same as in Poland nowadays. But turning back to your question, political interferences in the judicial system, especially, can eventually lead to Poland exiting the EU, because its legal system won't be compatible anymore with European standards. And especially the Polish Supreme Court and the country's ombudsman warned recently of the situation. It is really disturbing for us, for Poles, and especially for specialists which are interested of political situation in Poland and European Union, that Poland and Hungary, but especially Poland, doesn't meet European standards. Especially that we was treated as a pattern. It was treated as a kind of model for the other non-democratic countries. In comparison, democratic countries for a long time of what Poland was. When it comes to the ban of legal abortion in Poland, of course, is the other controversial question, especially that, as you mentioned, Poland is one of the European most strongly Catholic country. But of course, there was no public clamor of this, that Poland is a Catholic country. Especially controversial decision of Law and Justice Party, which was pressured by bishops and Catholic groups, the decision of total ban of abortion, because we talk about total ban of abortion without any exceptions. It means that not only abortion, because it's not a case. The case is inhuman treatment of women. And it is totally unjustified decision because of human rights of us as a woman. That's why I think it's, as I stress, inhuman. It caused protests, the big protest in Poland cities, not only main cities, but in even small cities in Poland. And of course, Poland's abortion laws, I think it's already amongst the strictest in Europe nowadays. But I think that the whole case is that this decision mark and one of the sad day for women's rights. That's why it caused protest and gathered across Poland so many people, not only women, of course, in order to protect and fight for protection of our rights. It is, of course, I assess it as a, once again, very dangerous situation, and our stance in European Union, because mentioned, we was treated as a model. We was treated as a country which observes human rights, which observes rule of law, and especially rights of women.
Okay, thank you, Beata. In order to make it clearer, I want to ask you, you mentioned politicians began to talk about Polexit, similar to what happened in Britain before the Brexit, but the general public attitude towards EU membership is still largely in favor
Very
of...
high.
Oh, yes, okay, that's important.
Largely in favor is around 80% people would like to be in European Union. All of time are for European Union. So I think the decision of our government is against. Of course, it's not decision about Polexit. To be honest, we should be honest. But the actions which was made by our government is close to Polexit. Yeah, because everything shows that we can to go one step more and two more in order to be excluded of European Union. Of course, from the legal point of view, it's not possible to be excluded of European Union, but we can do ourselves by our decisions and exit from the European Union. But I hope that it won't happen.
Okay, thank you. I get it very well now. So, Beata, let's go back to Turkey-EU relations, because that's what people are curious about in Turkey.
Yeah, of course.
As you mentioned, and you also wrote a very good column for us, for UPA, on this before, President Erdogan politically used this migrants deal in order to get more maybe concessions from the EU, or to encourage EU to fulfill its, this duties in terms of helping the Syrian migrants. But on the other hand, Turkey stayed loyal to the, except for maybe this during hassle, Turkey stayed loyal to the Syrian migrants deal with the EU-Turkey refugee deal until now. Still, there are almost 4 million Syrian refugees living in Turkish soil in different cities of Turkey. And Turkish military operations, by the way, I forgot to mention in the first part, but Turkish military operations are also aiming to solve this migrants problem in order to protect both Turkey and Europe from a new wave of migrants, because there is this Idlib problem with Russia, for instance, and the Syrian regime. If there will be another attack towards civilians, there might be another flow of migrants towards Turkey and EU. That's Turkish government and Turkish military is afraid of. Anyway, looking from Turkey, a lot of Turkish politicians, including even the pro-EU circles in Turkey, but with a less emphasis, let's say, they say that there is this general misperception or prejudice against Turkey in Europe, in the EU. It's maybe because of course, political problems of Turkey with Greece and Cyprus. I think that's the main motivation, because Greece and Cyprus are respected European members. Plus, France has recently, especially during Macron term, France has become a harsh Turkish critic. Austria now is a strong critic of Turkey. But in Turkey, generally, although people still support EU membership with a very high majority, let me say, not very high, but high majority, more than half of Turkey still support EU membership. They think that it's in Europe, there is this negative look towards Turkey. So if we have to make an assessment, because in the last EU Council declaration, we have seen that, in fact, the EU focused on more Eastern Mediterranean issues, not the Turkey's democratic problems or other journalists, arrest of journalists. These things are not mentioned. Mostly Eastern Mediterranean issue with Greece and Cyprus is mentioned. So why this EU-Turkey hassle? Is it because of clash of interest, or do you think there is a civilizational part of this? You can tell us, since you live in a very Catholic country and Turkey is a strongly Muslim country. Maybe you could tell us more objectively and honestly. So what do you think the most important problems about Turkey's negative image in the EU?
Okay, from the view of Poland, because I'm representative of Poland, of course, in my opinion, all you mentioned arguments, all mentioned conditions are true. First of all, it is a closing circle, the links between conditionality, so the legal conditions in order to join the European Union. Of course, it was accepted. Turkish candidacy, the EU was accepted a long time ago, as we talk about it. But of course, when it comes to conditionality, Turkey doesn't meet, especially the first one, the political condition when it comes to deterioration of human rights and democracy process. So it is one argument how European Union and European Union countries from the legal and acquis communautaire treat Turkey. The second is prejudice and misperception of Turkey because of religion and because of civilization process and civilization factor in Europe. First of all, I would like to say about this misperception, because Turkey very often fall into the wrong category, because European countries and people in Europe in general are used to put some the other traditions, countries which are based on the other traditions, languages, and cultures into the so-called black box of the other countries. The same was in the case of Turkey's accession into the EU, because not only the instability of the EU conditionality was one of the arguments against the EU, against the Turkey accession to the EU, but especially maybe not threats, but countries, the European Union countries, afraid of not accepting European values, so-called, of course, European values, because it was agreed by countries. So this argument was more than important. So this kind of values argument and civilization factor. But of course, this conditionality and civilization prejudice are interlinked in Europe. The other misperception is, I think, the wrong understanding of multiculturalism by European Union, one of the main value of the EU, actually. And of course, the question of European identity. This issue is very broadly and largely disputed in Europe. European identity is also the issue of my interest, and in terms of countries, different countries of the EU, you mentioned about it, they have different interests in Turkey's integration in the European Union, because especially in Denmark and Germany, Turkey's integration in the EU is mirrored to the integration of Muslim migrants communities in Europe. I really apologize for this statement, but the research shows that, in fact, this integration can have both positive and negative repercussion. So national identities policy, different member states are crucial in foreign relations of the European Union. The other countries, for example, France, the Turkey debate is tied to the domestic political battles between secularists and Catholics whereby the former appreciates Turkish secularism while being wary of the Turkish state control of religion. That's why I think that in these countries are the problem as the differences lies in definitions of national identities. National identities, is especially particularly in Germany, the member states with by far the largest Turkish diaspora in Europe. The debate about Turkey's EU accession reflects the different views about the German identity itself as a multicultural, multinational countries. By contrast, in the end, in the view of a small Turkish communities in countries such as Finland, Italy, and Poland, of course, Slovenia, on the rest of northern and southern countries, debates of identity, of national identity in these countries have little or even nothing to do with Turkey. It is explaining as a part of the lack of public debate of Turkey. That's why I think that everything depends on differences in attitudes, depend on whether the EU is perceived as a matter of domestic or the foreign policy. When it is a matter of domestic politics and policy, of course, the interests of the EU countries are crucial. How we identify the Turkey, how we think about the countries which would like to join the European Union, which the source of these countries, the roots of these countries comes from the other cultures, religion, and etc. etc. Because I think that that it is a core why we treat not only Turkey, but the rest countries, especially for as well from Western Balkans, as the others than the Western one. And turning to the issue of refugees deal with Turkey, you stressed that that was a crucial agreement for the European Union, especially because I said that models which was invented by the European Union countries, and especially differences, how to deal with it. For example, in Poland, which was for closing borders, the same as Hungary and the rest countries, closest in order not to allow migrants and refugees to cross our borders, and especially this deal from 2016 was a kind of the moment when the European Union stopped of course, some level stopped the wave of refugees, especially to Greek, to the Mediterranean islands. That's why I think that European Union should do everything in order to maintain this deal and this agreement. Of course, it depends on the second side as well, as you mentioned, especially Erdogan last time threatened to seize this agreement and threatened to send illegal refugees to Greek on the Greek border. But of course, I think, and as I guess you are on the same page, that it is a kind of political tool in the hand of Turkish president. That's why I think that Turkey is necessary. The good relations with Turkey, as on the last summit, European summit of the European Council was stressed by not only Joseph Borrell, but also President of European Council, the good relations and connections with Turkey are necessary in order to maintain stable policy in outside our border and inside border, because when we talk about Greece and Cyprus, they are members of the European Union. That's why I think it's crucial to maintain these relations, and of course on the base of interest of Turkey, because Turkey is a partner of the European Union in many different ways, especially in relations of in relations with military cases, in relations of cooperations. As a member of NATO, of course, in order to stabilize European security. And of course, when it comes to trade relations, it is also particular issues in cooperation of both sides. So maybe I'm a little bit naive, but I think that we as the European Union, of course, and as Poland, as a member of this organization still, I hope that it will continue. We should take into account not only interests of European countries, but partly an interest of different countries. Of course, we shouldn't base on a double standards in our stance to the other sides outside of the European Union, and of course try to maintain our relations on the base of human rights, democratic process, and of course, this policy should be continued in the European Union, but tried to force these countries, such as Turkey or the rest countries, to maintain and to observe these rules, the rules of human rights and democracy, especially then I mentioned some countries of the EU don't observe, unfortunately, these rules nowadays.
Thank you, Beata. As you mentioned, although there are problems, Turkish democracy has many flaws. It's not a secret. It's already known. But I think strategic relations are also matter here, especially in a very globalizing and competitive world where you have countries such as China, India having huge population.
Yeah.
Having a member like Poland or Turkey is also beneficial for the European economy, European market. Europe can stand only if it has a large labor force and large market. That's the advantage of Turkey. And of course, another aspect, although there are these sayings about European Union that EU will be collapsing, after Brexit, EU won't be very strong as it was in the past. At the same time, EU is deepening, especially with the new initiatives such as the PESCO, Permanent Structured Organization, and European Intervention Mechanism. So these are maybe after long years, European Union achieved to create some military mechanisms as well. It wasn't very beneficial for Turkey on the other hand, because lastly, for instance, as part of the Irini operation, some Turkish ships carrying humanitarian aid to Libyan people were searched, but it was later found out that there was nothing unlawful there. But looking, of course, Turkey has a special status being a member state, but full membership doesn't seem very realistic, at least in the short run. So looking at but Turkey is a NATO member, plus it has a very strong army, second largest army within the NATO, and it has a very strong military tradition. So looking from that point of view, could there be any areas of new partnership? I don't know if anyone in Europe or Turkey is in such matters, but maybe we'll be the first ones to mention about. Could Turkish armed forces could have a place within these initiatives, PESCO, European Intervention Mechanisms?
Yes, of course. I think that Turkey as a second army in the NATO is once again a crucial actor, and especially in case of contribution to the EU defense capabilities, referring as participation to this time Turkey's in European defense efforts, as you mentioned, in Lebanon, Afghanistan, Bosnia, Macedonia, and the African countries. And I think that many countries, such as Poland, includes Poland, may well favor Turkey's accession in the operation and stabilization policy on what happens in the European Union when it comes to security in our country. European Union, it is not a secret. The European Union should work on and worked for a long time on the kind of independent, so-called independent security policy on the base of developing PESCO and European intervention mechanism, and almost and above, not almost, above 30 military and peaceful operation into crises and conflict regions, and should take responsibility for security in Europe. But of course, Turkey as a still associated country can help European Union to resolve and to maintain stability and security in our country. It is, of course, it can help, especially in the relations with NATO, because of course Turkey is a member of NATO, as the EU and US relations, especially when we can observe the changes on the president, on the new candidate now. So it was approved by government as well, and chancellors. So I think that the relations that the United States also will improve when it comes to the EU and NATO relations, because it is important, and continuing the Turkey as a country and a member of NATO can play important role in European Union structures. Because in order to add, not only Turkey, but the other countries, even Russia participated in the EU operations in the Western Balkans in the 90s, Ukraine and the other countries which are not the members, even the NATO. Of course, the European Union aren't member of the European Union, but the NATO as well. That's why I think that military potential of NATO is another factor, another argument why we should cooperate with this country. Unfortunately and regrettably, Turkey approved that was forced Azerbaijan in conflict with Armenia, which not helped to resolve this conflict, as you know. But I think that the good cooperation in especially negotiation process and supporting even resolving the regional conflicts in Eastern Europe with the participation of Turkey can help to stabilize our region. I say our region, I mean, of course, region of Central Eastern Europe. And the Turkey's accession in these initiatives like PESCO and the other military and peaceful structures, developing structures, because we don't have still a European army as a regular army, you mean a national army, but it can have positive implications on the European Union as a foreign policy actor, because one of the priority of European Commission and one of the priority of the European Union in general for the next few years is to be and to come back to the idea that the European Union can be great again. Yeah, similar as President Trump said about the United States. So the same we can say about the European Union, and Turkey's help for the European Union and Turkey's support, especially in the military issues, can help the EU stay great again. So I think it can be a good conclusion for my views.
Yes, Beata, thank you. But two short questions before we end up, if you are just very short questions, and I expect answers from you. In Turkey, the public opinion is largely mentions that the EU also, before sanctioning Turkey, waited for the new US administration to take into office and start and look how they will position against Turkey. So what do you expect from very short Biden administration? He was elected 46th president. But in Poland, you know, Poland was a strong supporter of Donald Trump, but now Biden, Democratic, president, will it be more better for the EU in general? And secondly, you said 2021 will not be very productive for Turkey-EU relations, probably, you guessed. So what is the reason for this pessimism? These two short questions.
Okay, the first question about the new administration in the United States. Of course, many people in Poland, maybe beside of our government, waited for a new administration, for the administration of Biden, because I think that it's a kind of liberal, it was a kind of liberal candidate for the president of the United States, the biggest, the most potential country in the world. So I think that in general, the relations in foreign relations, not only in Europe but in the world, can change profoundly. But when it comes to because I forgot the first question. It was about expectations of am I right? It was about expectation of Biden's
yes, in terms of Eastern Mediterranean sanctioning Turkey. In Turkey, people said the EU waited for US what to decide. I mean, they wanted to see first what the new administration in the US will decide. So
last time, according to European Council summit in December, decided that the European Union should wait for the election and the new administration in the United States, and to this time, these two parts, the US and the EU, cooperated in every cases which was connected with security and stability in the world, and especially in Middle East. That's why I think that European Union authorities would like to wait for the decision of Biden when it comes to in terms of the sanction on US, especially after buying the military stuff by Turkey. That's why I think that it is the kind of dependence of these two sides in this very crucial decision how to deal with the important candidate, maybe not candidate, the important country like Turkey. So I think it will be cooperation. It will be cooperation. It will be the common decision. Of course, we should wait for official President Biden when it turns to be official president of the United States. But what about Polish government? Last time, not last time in November, they said that especially each candidate and each president would be good for realization of our interest as the interest of Poland. But Donald Trump promised us many incentives when it comes to our stabilization, especially our stabilization of eastern flank of NATO, because U.S. Army is on our soil nowadays. So I think that we are waiting for continuing of its protection. So I think that the one of the important decision of Donald Trump, we are thankful of Donald Trump, of course, for this, was the visa ban. Visa ban and of course ceasing of visa ban restrictions, so we can freely go to the United States without any visas and restrictions. Of course, the pandemic disturbs of us of this process of going to the United States, but of course we have a chance to go freely to this country. So I hope that I ask all your question.
Yes, thank you. We are out of time. You answered most of it. Let's hope you'll be visiting Turkey again. I'm also planning to visit maybe after the pandemic as part of Erasmus Plus program. I want to visit several European countries to teach there about Turkish politics, Turkish foreign policy in terms of Turkey's Middle East policy. So you can also, all Polish scholars, including you can visit our country. You can come and teach. Why not just for a week? Come and teach there for several years. International mobility is very important for the academic world. So let's hope Polish academics will be visiting our country. European academics will be visiting Turkey more often. So thank you, Dr. Beata. It was nice to see you, talk to you. Let's hope.
Thank you very much.
We'll continue in time when there will be something important. We'll ask your opinion, your expertise about developments. Thank you. Please feel free to contribute to UPA. It's your home. Okay.
Thank you very much. I always warmly wait for your visit in our university and in Poland, of course, because I think that our students are waiting for more broad knowledge about Turkish policy, Turkish political system in general, in order to stop the misperception, as you because we talk about it today. So I think that of course you are welcomed to online lectures for my students of the EU-Turkey relations. I would like to invite you, and I would like to, of course, contact with you in this case. But it was a great pleasure to be here, to of course to see you in a good condition. I hope that your family is in good condition as well. So we are hoping for the end of the pandemic and to regular visit in our countries. It will be a great pleasure for me to host you in Poland as well, because Turkey is a beautiful country. I'm grateful that I can be with an Erasmus program at your university, former university, as I guess.
Former university, yes.
Gadik University. I hope that you feel well in your new job place. So I'm happy for the cooperation, not only in UPA, on the UPA base, but also in our research. So thank you very much once again, and a warm warm greetings for the Turkish audience, and I always with pleasure would like to share of my opinions with you and the Turkish student experts and people. So let's keep in touch, and I hope we will see in ordinary ways.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Beata, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.